My name is David Williamson, and I'm continuing the series Nuggets from the Book of Revelation. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the Revelation 12 sign of the woman in the heavens. Before I get into the meat of the topic, into the scriptures of Revelation 12, I want to first of all look at some of the signs and examine the reason why this particular sign in Revelation 12, the sign of the woman, is so key. It is why it is so vital. Why we need to understand it and understand its prophetic significance and whereabouts on the prophetic timeline we should expect and what we should expect in these end of days. I want to first of all look at the significance of the year 5777. That's the year that we're in, according to the Hebraic calendar. What is the significance? Because there is a significance to this number, and it is one of those keys that is vital to the understanding of the Revelation 12 sign. Because the number 577 is the number of completion, first of all. 7 is the number of completion. Now we have 3 sevens. That corresponds to perfect completion. And in fact, you could interpret, since 5 is the number of grace, the year 5777 can in fact be rightly understood as being the perfect completion of the times of grace. So that in itself gives us a good starting point, an understanding of where we're at prophetically. Yeah, I want to have a look at Rabbi Judah ben Samuel and his prophecy. He was in fact a prophet from the 12th century. He was a Talmudic scholar in Germany, and he died in the year 1217. But he made a very important and profound prophecy regarding these times, and also relating to this completion year of the number 5777. And what he actually prophesied was that the Turks would rule over the holy city of Jerusalem for 8 jubilees. That is 8 jubilees from the time that he was alive. And in fact, he prophesied absolutely correctly, and that is exactly the length of time, exactly 400 years later rather, it was when the British, during World War I, General Edmund Allenby, he walked into Jerusalem and took over the ruling and rulership of the holy city and took it away from the Turks. So then in the 9th Jubilee, his prophecy said that it would be a no man's land for the 9th Jubilee. So that's from 1917, the year the Brits walked in, to 1967. That's 50 years. This would be a no man's land, and that's exactly what it was. For 50 years, it was pretty much a no man's land. And in fact, then he goes on to say in the 10th Jubilee, Jerusalem will be controlled by Israel. Now this is a prophecy from a 12th century rabbi living in Germany, Judah ben Samuel. So he actually prophesied that Israel will be back in the land for exactly the 10th Jubilee from his lifetime. And that's exactly what happened. In the 10th Jubilee, we have Jerusalem taking control of the land of Israel, and that's for 50 years. And then it says at the end of that period, so from 67 onwards to the year 2017, so this is the time that we're in now, 2017, the year 5777. He says, this is the time of the messianic end times. He says, in fact, and this is interesting to note, he says, then the messianic end times will begin. So he's not saying this is the date or the year of the time of his arrival, but rather that Jesus, in speaking, if you look at it from the Gospels and other New Testament books, we can see that this is the time of the end times that Jesus spoke of. And Jesus says of these times, at the end of these times will be his return. So that's very interesting to note. So Rabbi Judah ben Samuel, who was very accurate in his prophecies, actually predicted that this year, this very year, would be the beginning of the end times. And the end times is the last 3.5 years of the 70th week. That's the time of the Great Tribulation. There's no other references to suggest that we have any tribulation, great tribulation, end time tribulation prior to that. When it talks about the 70th week, it talks really about the last 3.5 years in reference to all of the tribulation period. Okay, apart from, that is, the beginning of sorrows. Now, the beginning of sorrows we know comes just prior to the last 3.5 years. Now, if Revelation 12 sign is correct, then that's the time that we're in right now. Okay, so the next point is I'm going to actually go through a list of what Jesus speaks of and look at it in light of the times that we're in and what's happening in these times. So, in fact, it says, apart from Rabbi Judah ben Samuel, there's been many, many, many prophets, both past and present, that speak of this very time as being the time of the end times and Jesus' return, his soon coming return. So the other signs that we should look for, according to the Gospels, according to Jesus' own words, he speaks what? He speaks of earthquakes, volcanoes, wars, rumors of wars, lawlessness, flooding, extreme weather, and in fact we know that Israel must be back in the land, and we have a lot of mass animal die-offs in addition. So all of these things are taking place right now, both earthquakes and volcanoes. You've probably seen on the news, you've probably seen some of the excellent informational videos that have been done that reveal exactly just how how much the increase of volcanoes, volcanic activity and earthquakes is taking place and has taken place over a 100-year period, over a 10-year period, and even over the last few years. We can see an increase, a dramatic increase. So in fact we've just had one of the deepest ever, hitting the Magna Core, in fact, earthquake that has just taken place down near the Philippines there. So you're talking of that's serious. When you get earthquakes that are going that deep, you're talking then that's never been known. This is the deepest recorded. So there again you have an indication of just how much these signs are increasing. In addition to that, it says what else? It says that knowledge will increase. Well, the internet has certainly fulfilled that prophecy like never before. People have access to knowledge on a scale that's never been known, never. And so there is great and vast amount of knowledge that is available. Many people have a lot of knowledge, but it's the understanding of that knowledge that actually is what is really important. So yes, we have a great increase in knowledge, and that can be seen through the internet. Then also it says as the days of Noah. And what happens in the days of Noah? Well, you have sexual immorality. Sexual immorality is rife, absolutely rife. Governments that are not just supporting it, but actually propagandizing it. They are actually promoting it, which is on a scale, again, never been known. And it's not just isolated countries that are doing this. This has been going on for some number of years across the world. So we're having an increase in sexual immorality, an increase in violence, particularly amongst the young. It speaks of the young and how the increase of lawlessness, particularly amongst the young, we're seeing. But something else in the days of Noah that is also happening, and this is fairly recent, which is hybridization. It's the crossbreeding of man with animal. And this is something, again, never been seen since the days of Noah, when the Nephilim were upon the earth. And so here again, we see another vital key there to understanding that verse about the days of Noah. We also have what? We have false Christs. We have false prophets, and these both are on the increase. Imitators of Christ, coming out and basically saying, I'm Christ, I'm Jesus, follow me, kind of thing. Then we have the false prophets, and like in the days of Jeremiah, the false prophets would do what? They would soothsay. They would promise you or the hearers that, oh yeah, everything's fine, everything's going to be great, you're going to have an increase next year. And quite clearly this cannot possibly be the case in the days that we're living in. These are false prophets. And why are they doing this? They are doing it for profit. They are doing it for their own gain and for their own increase. It's for mammon, and that is the real reason why they are giving out these false prophecies and why they always have. Okay, then the next thing that's happening is that we have the Christians that are being persecuted, and many unto death on a scale like has not been seen since the early church. We are seeing a massive increase in the number of deaths across the world, and particularly in areas of the Middle East and in other places such as Korea and Africa, where the Christian persecution is at a level we have never experienced in this modern era, certainly. We also have tensions. We spoke earlier about of rumours of wars, and tension between the East and the West, between Russia and the NATO forces. We've never seen such a tension and a build-up, an actual build-up of forces on the Russian border like we're seeing today. The number of men and the number of armaments that are currently in place along the Russian border, that is all the way from the north, from the Arctic, right the way down to the south of the nation of Russia, though, Kazakhstan and around all that area, the Euphrates, in fact, the area of the Euphrates. We've never seen, all along that border, all along it, a massive build-up of forces, both of NATO forces and Russian forces along that border. This has not been seen. Not even in the Second World War was there such a build-up, or just after the Second World War. We have never seen, during the Cold War, we have not seen this many troops along the border. And tensions between the two. Current tensions. You'll have seen in the news all these incidents of Russian diplomats being killed and expelled and so on and so forth. You can see that this is a time of tribulation, but not the tribulation as yet. So we're seeing all this turmoil in the Middle East. And we have seen for quite a few years now, since the Arab Spring, a massive increase and ramping up of tensions and of wars in that region, which is almost on a daily level. The scale is being ramped up in the region to boiling point, and it's culminating in what? Oh my goodness! It's culminating in this gathering in Paris of 70 nations, a peace gathering is what it's called. My goodness. That alone, that in itself is a sign, a prophetic sign, the like of which, when taken in context with everything else that's going on in the world, has to be seen as a vital sign of prophecy that needs to be rightly understood at this current time in the world and along the prophetic timeline. And it's vital to understand, particularly in relation to Revelation 12. And I'm going to explore more about that in the next video, but it's absolutely key. It is absolutely vital to understand, the timing and what is significant about the timing of this 17-nation gathering in Paris.